Signals in the silence. The night was still, wrapped in a blanket of rural silence. Only the hum of an old ham radio broke the quiet, its dials glowing faintly in the dim light of a cluttered shed. Inside, Walter Griggs, a retired mechanic turned radio enthusiast, leaned over his rig, headphones clamped tight. The world outside, the woods, the hills, the dark sky, felt distant, irrelevant. He lived alone, just beyond the edge of town. People stopped calling years ago. But Walter didn't mind. The radio gave him something no person ever had: mystery. Signals bounced through space, number stations, distorted voices, bursts of Morse code. But tonight, the static held something different. Something wrong. At 2:14 a.m., the noise shifted. The hiss folded into a low pulsing tone, followed by rhythmic beeps. Walter's eyes narrowed. He jotted down the sequence, fingers trembling with excitement. Not a known frequency. Not any code he'd seen. And yet, it felt deliberate. Familiar, somehow. Hours passed. Coffee turned cold. Walls of notebooks grew as he worked, decoding the transmission. Letters began to form. Words. "We see you, listener." His heart kicked. Was it a prank? A signal from another country? The message continued. Sentences formed, layered with chilling precision. "Look up." He did. Through the shed's dusty window, the night sky shimmered, unnaturally. 3 silent orbs hovered above the tree line, glowing a cold blue-white. No engine, no sound. Just presence. The signal intensified. His equipment whined. Lights flickered. The shed buzzed like it was alive. Over the next nights, the signals returned. Always at the same time. Always more complex. Walter stopped sleeping. He mapped the patterns obsessively. He didn't care about food. Or day. Or time. The sky opened wider. More lights. Brief shadows crawling along the horizon. Sometimes, his tools moved on their own. Once, his radio turned on without power. He tried to tell someone. But what could he say? That they were speaking to him? That the stars were watching back? He wasn't scared. He was chosen. And in the silence of his shed, beneath the pulse of alien light, Walter Griggs listened. The visitors. The lights hadn't returned in 3 nights. Walter Griggs sat motionless in his shed, surrounded by wrinkled signal logs, his eyes bloodshot, his radio silent. The air was thick with anticipation. He knew they would come back. He could feel it, like a low hum in his bones. At 3:03 a.m., the shed light flickered. His radio, unplugged for days, suddenly sparked to life, hissing static before the signal returned, a burst of deep tones, unlike anything man-made. Walter didn't need to decode it this time. The message was clear. They were near. He stepped outside, the chill biting through his flannel shirt. The night was unnaturally quiet. No crickets. No wind. Just the heavy stillness of something waiting to be seen. Then, they appeared. 3 figures stood at the tree line. Tall. Thin. Their limbs too long, their movement too fluid, like shadows walking through water. No eyes, but he could feel them watching. They glowed faintly, not with light, but with presence. Walter's breath caught in his throat. He couldn't move. Didn't want to. They stepped closer, wordless. And yet, he understood them. Not in language, in thought. In emotion. A wave of knowing crashed over him. We are not here to hurt you. One of them knelt, and from its elongated fingers, dropped something into the soil. A metallic object, no larger than a coin, shimmered under the moonlight. Then, as silently as they came, the being stepped back into the woods. The lights dimmed. The world restarted. Walter staggered forward. The object was warm to the touch, pulsing gently. Geometric patterns shifted across its surface, too complex to be human-made. He brought it inside, placing it beside his receiver. The radio immediately reacted. Frequencies pulsed, dancing around the object. New signals, layered, harmonic, filled the air. That night, Walter didn't sleep. Not from fear, but from purpose. They had given him something. A key, perhaps. A puzzle. A warning. He didn't understand it yet. But he would. They would return. And when they did, he'd be ready. Missing time. Walter Griggs always stuck to a routine: tea at midnight, logs at 1, skywatch until dawn. But this night was different. A pressure in the air, like the sky was holding its breath. The object the visitors left pulsed brighter, faster. The signals had changed too, not messages now, but coordinates. A place. A time. He followed. The gravel crunched beneath his boots as he drove toward the old logging road, deep in the forest. No moon, just branches slicing shadows across his windshield. The signal's tone grew louder through the receiver he kept in the passenger seat, a guiding hum. Then, silence. Walter blinked. The clock on his dash read 4:42 a.m. The last time he checked, it had been 1:16. 3 hours, gone. He was still in his truck, engine idling. No memory of stopping. No recollection of turning around. The forest outside was eerily still. He felt different. Not afraid, exactly. But shifted. Out of sync. Back home, Walter stood in front of the mirror. Something itched beneath his shirt. Slowly, he peeled it back. There, just below his collarbone, was a mark, a perfectly circular burn, like a branding. Around it, faint bruising in the shape of 3 concentric rings. He touched it, and in that instant, the visions came. Flashes. Bright, white light. Weightlessness. A humming chamber with curved walls and floating symbols. He was lying on a table, surrounded by shapes, watching, analyzing, probing. He stumbled backward. The object on his desk vibrated, syncing with the rhythm in his head. The radio turned on by itself. More visions came over the following days, sounds he couldn't describe, lights that moved through walls, hands that weren't hands touching his thoughts. He stopped going outside. He didn't trust time anymore. Not when it could vanish without warning. Not when it could be stolen. Whatever happened in those 3 hours, it wasn't over. They had opened his mind. And now, they weren't just out there. They were inside. The mark. The burn on Walter's chest hadn't faded. If anything, it had deepened, the edges darker, the center glowing faintly beneath the skin, like a coal hidden under flesh. He tried to hide it at first, wearing layers, avoiding mirrors. But no matter where he went, it tingled. A quiet pulse. Like it was alive. Then came the light. One night, as he sat hunched over his workbench, cataloging new radio frequencies, the object the visitors had left sparked. A flicker, then a beam of focused ultraviolet light bathed his chest. The mark shimmered, revealing something unseen, a symbol etched into his skin. It wasn't random. A star map. Lines and dots, geometric, yet fluid, like a galactic constellation no telescope on Earth had ever recorded. He frantically copied it down. It matched nothing in human records. But that same week, his inbox lit up. Not spam. Not trolls. Real people. From Montana. Norway. South Africa. Japan. They had the same mark. The same lost time. The same dreams. They were waking up, just like him. Some reported hearing tones when near electronics. Others saw symbols glowing through walls. A few had seen the visitors again, this time in crowded spaces, hiding in plain sight. Walter formed a group. Not public. Not loud. A network of the marked. They began compiling their experiences, sharing drawings, visions, sounds. And slowly, a pattern emerged. Every mark, when combined, formed a larger map. A spiral. A countdown. Walter's radio screeched that night. Not static, a voice. Metallic. Layered. It spoke in pulses. Binary first, then English. Only one phrase came through clear. Prepare for alignment. Outside, the sky shimmered. Not brightly. Not violently. Just a flicker, like the atmosphere was cracking. Walter no longer felt chosen. He felt claimed. The others agreed. Something was coming. They didn't know what. But they knew the mark wasn't a gift. It was a summons. The return. It began with the skies, not splitting open this time, but bending, like fabric under pressure. Cloud formations twisted unnaturally, stars flickered out for seconds at a time, and the air tasted faintly of metal. Walter Grigg stood outside his shed, eyes locked on the heavens, heart pounding in sync with the mark glowing on his chest. He wasn't alone anymore. Hundreds across the globe, the marked, had reported the same phenomenon. Dreams had turned into visions. Static into voices. And last night, every one of them received the same final message. We are returning. Walter's radio turned itself on at exactly 11:11 p.m. A single frequency pulsed steadily. It wasn't sound, not exactly, more like thought encoded in noise. He could feel it. Understand it without hearing it. The signal wasn't just for him. It was for everyone. Suddenly, the power in his home flickered. Died. The world outside dimmed. No moon. No stars. Just blackness swallowing the sky. And then, the light returned. It wasn't one ship. It was dozens. Hundreds. Silent leviathans hovering across every continent. People everywhere stopped what they were doing, on highways, in malls, inside homes, staring upward in shared awe and terror. News broadcasts tried to stay on air, but most failed. The images that did get out were shaky, blurred, frantic. One thing was clear, these visitors weren't hiding anymore. Walter watched as three glowing figures emerged from the tree-line once more. But this time, they weren't ethereal. They were real. Tangible. And they weren't just observing. They were moving toward him, fast. His body froze, but his mind expanded. Flooded with knowledge not meant for humans, glimpses of black stars, spirals of time, entire civilizations crushed by silence. One phrase echoed through his thoughts, etched by something far older than fear. The alignment has begun. And just like that, the sky cracked open above him. A beam of light struck the earth. Not violent. Not explosive. Just, final. No one would ever forget that night. But only the marked knew the truth. The visitors didn't come to speak. They came to collect.